Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's your boy, Derek Jones, and you know what tonight is? It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m., and it is the Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live Edition. And tonight we got a special show. It's going to be real informative, so you may just want to share and invite this with everybody you know, especially those of you who are in relationships or who may be dating or maybe in the beginning stages of one. You're going to need this information, not want, but need this information. So what I want you to do real quick is give me about 30 seconds to make sure everything is going where it needs to go. And we'll be right back and we will start the podcast. So stand by.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derek Jones about to break it down with the Relationship Gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, cause better relationships need better ingredients, so if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derek Jones, the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship Gumbo,
All right, we are back. Hopefully everybody's had a good week. And hopefully you have hopefully a fun or amazing weekend ahead. Tonight's topic, we're talking about conflict and how you fight and what it means. What type of person are you when it comes to conflict? We're going to do a deep dive tonight. You know, I come with facts and information to help you along in your journey of having a better relationship. So if you are new to the Relationship Gumbo podcast, this is also an audio podcast, and it will be uploaded to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, all of those places. Anywhere you can get a podcast, I am there. Just look up Relationship Gumbo Podcast, and it will pop up for you. So what we normally do, if you're new to the show, is I normally will pause for 3 seconds. I will start the podcast, and at the end of the podcast, I will pause for another 3 seconds. So without further ado, give me those 3 seconds, and we will get started. Welcome to another episode of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones, and I am your host. I'm a certified life and relationship coach, an engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. And today, our topic, it's all about criticism and fighting in relationships. Your fighting means something. We may not know what it means. It may be a way that we fight or we resolve conflict that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction and we don't really realize what it means. So I am going to hunker down and give you guys the meat and potatoes of what these different types of things that we do when we're in conflict with our significant other. Could be a family member, but conflict in general. And because this is a relationship show, we're going to focus on relationships. So where I'm going to pull this information from, there is an author, but he's also a relationship coach and a researcher. His name is John Gottman. And what he has determined is there's 4 critical areas where we kind of drive and derive how we react to people when we're dealing with conflicts. And he calls it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? These things either singularly or together could cause the demise of a relationship. So we don't want y'all to break up. So I'm going to give you some things so that you can understand. You're going to see yourself in this, right? I'm going to tell you this now. You're going to see yourself and or somebody you know 2,000,000%. So some of this stuff may be triggering. Some of this stuff may be eye-opening to you. But either way, we're going to get through this, and I want you guys to really listen close. Please invite your friends, share this out, because this information is critical, because we all have conflict. Now, I am going to give the disclaimer that all of these things that I'm going to talk about tonight are normal. All of these things that I'm going to talk about tonight, even if you do them or it represents you, isn't a bad thing. It's when it happens in excess all the time, it starts to become a problem, because it's not just a thing you do, it's the thing you do. It's all the time. It's a part of who you are, and that's when you know that something has to change. So with using John Gottman's example of the 4 horsemen, I'm going to read you the definitions of each one, and one at a time, we're going to talk about what that looks like in real life and what that could look like in your relationship. So Starting with number one. Number one, the way that some people start conflict or even react to conflict is called criticism. And the way that he defines criticism is criticizing your partner is different from offering a critique or voicing a complaint. The latter two are about specific issues, whereas the former is an ad hominem attack. It is an attack on your partner at the core of their character. In effect, you are dismantling their whole being when you criticize. So this is what that means, right? And I don't even have to read this to know what this is because we see it all the time. And some parts of this are really, like Alicia's on here, she'll tell you some parts of what I'm about to say, they trigger the hell out of me. It's when something happens, like let's say one person in a relationship will say, hey, you forgot to take the trash out. And you know the trash needs to be taken out. That kind of sort of sounds like someone is critiquing something, you're not doing it, right? That's a critique. We're not talking about that. That's more of a complaint. Like, I don't like the fact that the trash hasn't been taken out, right? It's a complaint. That's normal. Where the critique starts to get dangerous is when you say, you never take the trash out. I don't understand why you never take the trash out. So it's a function of a character attack versus attacking the problem. What do we need to do to make sure that you remember to get the trash out versus you are incapable of even figuring out what the hell why it's so important to take the trash out? That attack. Remember, on this show, we always talk about when you have discourse, sometimes these things hurt. And when things hurt, people may not necessarily express the hurt. They keep it and it stacks over time. And then you start to get into a territory where you do not want your relationship to go. So when you are complaining about something, remember there's a difference between a complaint and a criticism that attacks someone's character. Because Alicia will tell you, I have a big trigger when someone says never. You never. That means my whole body of work for years and decades. That's every single time. That's not true. But if you say, hey, I would like it if maybe you need to put an alarm in your phone to make sure you can take the trash out. I would rather you give me that than to tell me that I ain't shit. Because then we got a problem, right? So think about that. As you are expressing your complaints or the things that may need some adjustments versus attacking someone's character, because this can become a problem if it's done in excess over time. You're going to start to build an enemy combatant because they're not going to really want to hear the complaint because it's always going to feel, it's almost like trauma. It's going to feel, the complaints are going to start to feel like criticism. And you don't want to go there if you had a choice to pick which way to go. And I know some of this stuff is frustrating to you, and maybe the delivery might be off the chain. And it's okay because you're human. But it's understanding how that delivery could affect your partner and resolving it is where you find better communication skills. I'll read some of these comments. Tony Massey says, you got to fight fair. Welcome, brother. Hey, Alicia. Dope discussion is here. Alicia says, never is a big trigger for you. Yeah, never would. I see red when somebody say never, especially at my job. They do it a lot. And I'm like, hold on, man. I've been here 21 years. Never is a long time. Stop, because we're going to have some problems. Erica says, address the issue without attacking the person. Tony Massey says, definitives are a huge trigger. Never, always, every time, and all the time. Yep. You do that to me, you're going to see a totally like this smile going away. I'm like, what? You say what? Never. So think about that, guys. It has even though their words become things, people always think all I said was you never know. It's in a character attack to someone that you claim that you love more than anything. We got to be careful how we treat each other. And I know for a lot of us, it's a learning curve. We wasn't trained how to communicate well with a partner. But you see either in behavior or how that person reacts to you. So we're gonna talk about that. Like I said, tonight we're gonna learn some things. Hey Tashura. So the number 2 horseman, and if you're just to recap, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the apocalypse means the demise of your relationship. Number 1 was criticism. Number 2 horseman is contempt. This one right here, I've been in some relationships where this was a thing, right? I'm breathing heavy for a reason, guys. The definition that John Gottman has here is when we communicate in this state, we are truly mean. We treat each other with disrespect, mock them with sarcasm, ridicule, call them names, and mimic or use body language such as eye rolling or scoffing. The target of contempt is made to feel despised and worthless. Contempt is fueled by long, simmering negative thoughts about the partner, which come to a head when the perpetrator attacks the accused from a position of relative superiority. Let me tell you something. This right here, when people are in relationships and they say things to purposely hurt you, because maybe there was some other stuff that happened prior. Maybe they're just that person. Maybe you picked wrong, right? When this person says things to emasculate you as a man, when somebody calls you names out your name and it's supposed to be your partner, you calling somebody to be, I'm a man. You call a man a bitch. It's gonna be a whole nother problem, right? Or here's another thing, and I'm only talking from this perspective because I'm a dude, so sue me. I know it happens, things happen in the other way. I know women hear a lot of stuff from dudes. Put it in the comments if you want to. But when you start saying things like you ain't a real man because blah, blah, but I'm your man, then we got a problem, right? Your only reason to do that is to try to hurt me. And when we do these things to hurt each other and have contempt, you doing it on purpose. Whether that's you feeling like maybe you getting me back because of something that I did, either way, it does not put your relationship on a trajectory for you guys to last long term. Because 2 things are going to happen when you have this right here is just pure. Like, to me, you really, at this point, I don't see the respect in the relationship when you start calling names and doing all this mean. That right there, I've been in these, and you know how sometimes we get in these toxic relationships and we stay because we think, maybe it'll get better. Somebody doing this right here, red, super duper duper red flag. Y'all gonna either have to figure that out or get out, because it only gets worse over time if you don't address it. Trust me, especially if you're the person on the receiving end and you choose to duck down and take it. Now it becomes abuse after a while, and you got to sit in that. And so we're gonna talk about the other 2 horsemen, but it's this one right here. I know a lot of you feeling this one because it hurts. It hurts like hell. And what do you do with that pain? Do you lash out in anger? Do you? I always talk about people when they on a certain level in the argument. Do you meet them there? Do you stand down? Do you go higher than them? Make it worse? It's a lot of things that go through, and a lot of times people make the decision to just say, you know what, you got it. I'm gonna go in the other room, and then the next day everything's cool. It's not cool. It's not cool. And I thought it was important to break these down because I always talk about how we hurt each other in relationships, but I never really did like a drill down into what it looks like and giving it definitions. So you really got to think about this. You made a conscious decision to be in a long-term relationship or a marriage with a person because you love them. Y'all hopefully had the conversations and everything looks like it's going to be something that you're willing to work for long term. That person is the person that you calling out their name, telling them they ain't shit, belittling them, emasculating them. It's not cute. And some people will say, well, they did this to me, so they deserve it. So now we on tit for tat. What does your relationship look? What does your communication look like? Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm staying on this one purposely for a minute. This is what happens. If y'all don't resolve it, there's going to be a lot of resentment. You will have 2 angry people. And eventually, Either you're going to break up, you're going to live in the turmoil, or somebody going to step out where they can find some peace. Because remember, on this show, I talk about it a million times. Sometimes outside looks real sexy when inside is a combat zone. That's all I'm saying. So why would you want your house to be that place, right? You know what? I'm gonna have to tag some of these videos, because then when you add all of that trauma in over time, then you basically, I have another show called, it's something I believe it's called, you living in a haunted house. You got all of the ghosts of trauma in past arguments, past that you didn't resolve. Those ghosts are floating around. Your house don't feel good when you walk in there. You can't relax in a house like that. All that trauma is floating around. So we're going to go to the third horseman, right? Because I'm not going to be on here super long, but this is going to be probably one of the most informative shows, because I think we've either been the perpetrator or the recipient of these things, right? The number 3 horseman is defensiveness, right? I don't even really have to tell y'all about this one, right? But I'm going to read the definition. It's typically a response to criticism. Remember, we went up to criticism. You attack my character. I'm going to have to go into defense mode, because now you talking about me. You ain't talking about the problem. So what's up? Now the only real thing the main thing I'm going to do to defend myself is now I got to attack you back. I'm a grown man. Now I got to attack a woman, and a woman got to attack her man, and we in love. Because you ain't going to talk about me, the character, because a lot of times in relationships, we both put in a lot. We put in some sweat equity. We put money in. We got time in. You talk about this one? You talk about me? You remember all the stuff we went, me? I'm that dude? Because I ain't take the trash out, or because whatever the thing is on the opposite side, it goes both ways. You attack my character, I'm either going to fold or I'm going to fight you back. Now that argument turns into some hurtful stuff. Right? And so I'm going to read this definition. That was just the first sentence. It's typically a response to criticism. We've all been defensive, and this horseman is nearly omnipresent when relationships are on the rocks. And when we feel unjustly accused, we fish for excuses and play the innocent victim so our partner will back off. Unfortunately, this strategy is almost never successful. Our excuses just tell our partner that we don't take their concerns seriously and that we won't take responsibility for our mistakes. So, I'm going to read a couple comments. Tony Massey says, they say the best offense is a good defense. And Tashura says, yeah, you start talking about me, we got a problem. Tony Watts says, and Tony Massey says, meanwhile, we arguing about nothing. And Tony Watts says, that's when sarcasm is used as a weapon. Yeah. So think about it, guys. There's no good that comes from this. Number one, some of us have had to be in defensive mode. This is where it gets to be like a real thing. Some of us have been in defensive mode in our relationship so long that even when stuff happens that we shouldn't be defensive about, we automatically there before they even open their mouth, because it's one word or it's a movement or something that feels like something. You get triggered by it, and now you in defense mode. And now, when you're in defense mode, the other person that's bringing their grievance to you or whatever it is, you don't even hear it. And then when you go on defense mode, you now negate whatever the concern is from the other person because you did it without even being prompted. I need y'all to catch that. Sometimes you can go through so much in a relationship that you react to things that don't even warrant it. And then the other partner's like, why are you so defensive? Well, you said, no, I didn't. You didn't listen to what I said. Well, it sounded like you was going, no. This is why we have to learn to respect each other's positions and hear them out. Because when you do that, now the other person has to go on defense mode too. And nobody hears the other person out. Because you know what I used to do? I used to do what I call all lives matter. You bring your thing to me, I go on defense mode, and I'll say, but you did it too. To negate your concern, I need to make myself feel you did it too. So now it should be a wash. You know how they all lives matter? You talk about Black Lives Matter, and they like, no, over here, we over here. No, we're not talking about that. Pay attention. We try to find ways to figure out how we are not the problem. That's why in this response it says you want to play the victim. We may not, it hurts to call ourselves the victim, but that's what you're doing when you negate somebody else. Let me see what this comment say. Dope Discussion says, everything feels like an attack. Tashura says, I did that ish for 11 years of marriage. Now I don't argue. I'm grown. We will have a discussion. Yeah, Dope Discussion says, walking on eggshells is no fun. Yeah. Because if you don't, let's say you don't have the contention, the other part of it is that you just going back down and just to keep the peace. It still goes all bad because now you're not even able to speak about what your concerns are. So we have to learn to communicate better with each other. And a lot of times you're going to need a third party to come and help you figure out where the leak is, because you can't see it while you're emotionally involved and you've been fighting for so many years and you don't even understand. It's hard to figure out your way out when it's been a part of your, it's muscle memory for you to be defensive. It's muscle memory for you that if, I always use the trash example. Let's say somebody didn't take the trash out and you automatically get mad without even figuring out why it didn't get taken out. You just pissed off because you had a plan. This was supposed to be done by the time I got home. Why is the person sitting on the couch right now? And then you go into critique mode, right? We're going to hit these things. You never take the trash out. What's wrong with you? You know this was supposed to be done. You don't care about this house. What's the problem? Personal attack. Right? Just hearing me say it don't feel good. If you was on the receiving end of that, you're like, damn, we've been together for 5 years. The hell? But it happens every day. Right? And as humans, we look at our body of work. We like, yo, I just reshingled the roof last week. I done cooked these 3 meals, and they talk about, I don't care about this house. Me? Right? That personal character attack hurts when it's coming from that person. And you carry it to the next 100 arguments. Unresolved. And then we wonder why there's these reasons why people break up, and you be like, they were so good together. They seem like they got along. It's these little things. I always tell you, these little things become big things when you don't understand what they are. And sometimes these things that we do aren't even because of the person we with. I need you to understand me when I say this. Sometimes these reactions that we have aren't even about this person. It's trauma you carried from the last relationship or the last 3 relationships. And maybe in your last relationships, the trash was an issue. It was huge. Y'all done had battles over the trash. You get into the new relationship and anything trash related is going to trigger you. I'm gonna need a moment of silence for that one, okay? I'm gonna read some comments and then we're gonna get to this last horseman, which is another big one. Let me see here. Gunter Man says, When we attack back, we deny ourselves the opportunity to hear the why behind it all. Also, you miss out on hearing how you are showing up in situations that helped them to get there. Yeah, Tony Watt says we have more people than like it's. Hold on, this thing scrolling too fast for me to read. It's the like. Oh, yeah. Please share this. Dope discussions with Erica says, what about when you go ahead and take out the trash and then give him the silent treatment? That's also another form of passive aggressive behavior. Absolutely. This happens a lot. What Erica just said is when you pissed off that the trash doesn't get taken out, you don't ask the why, you don't have a dialogue about it, you take it out anyway, and then you come back in pissed off and don't even say nothing. And just let it go, and just let it, and the other person looking at you like, you good? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. It solves nothing, because whatever triggered you to get that pissed off, it didn't get fixed. so what it I'm triggered now. Because there's some past relationships I done had some wars over little stuff. And I had a guest on here. I talked about this probably a few times in some past shows. I had a guest on here that used to, she said she used to go in on her husband about the trash. Like ridiculously so about the trash. And she realized one day that she was going at him so hard that it kind of scared her. Like, she was like, wait, is this really about the trash? And she had to kind of, step back and teach herself and tell herself that, like, why is she talking to her man like that? We always on this show talk about tone and delivery. I don't care which side it's coming from, male to female, female to male, whatever it is, choose your poison. It don't feel good to have somebody raising their voice at you, calling you out your name. It hurts. I don't care how macho you are. You don't want that. And it grows over time, that resentment. So, Gunter Man says, love is patient, love is kind, love is long suffering. These should be our main response to life disruptions. Absolutely. So here's the last one here. This last one is a powerful one. It's one that we see all the time. And I know a lot of you are going to identify with this one. And it's called stonewalling. And I'm going to define it for you, and then I'm going to expound on it, because I really don't have to read much on this one. We see this every day. Stonewalling, which is usually a response to contempt. Stonewalling occurs when the listener withdraws from the interaction, shuts down, and simply stops responding to their partner. Rather than confronting the issues with their partner, people who stonewall can make evasive maneuvers such as tuning out, turning away, acting busy, or engaging in obsessive or distracting behaviors. It takes time for the negativity created by the first three horsemen to become overwhelming enough that stonewalling becomes an understandable out. But when it does, it frequently becomes a bad habit. And unfortunately, stonewalling isn't easy to stop. Now, here's the thing about stonewalling, right? In itself, like I said, none of these things we can say that you should never be or never do, because you're human. We have our days. It's when you do them all the time, when it becomes a habit, is where it's a problem. So this is what I learned in my research from this stonewalling, because I really, really needed to understand this for this show, and so you guys can, so that you guys can understand. People who stonewall, when they did a study on this, this author John Gottman, when they did a study on this, and they looked at thousands of people who do this, and they compared them to people who don't, they had what they call physiological flooding, which means everything kind of gets into like a hyper fight or flight state. right? Almost kind of like anxiety, like heartbeat racing. They noticed that there was a physiological change to people who try to shut it down. And what they found is when that person shuts down because of all of those physiological triggers, they're doing it so that they can soothe the triggers. And they're going to need time to soothe before they can re-engage. So I know there's a comment about a narcissist that did that too. There are some people who use it as a tactic, but there are some people who may not be egregious in this, who they have to shut down to calm down the things that are happening to their body, right? And so whatever's triggering them to stonewall, like I said, it could be you, it could be some other trigger. When it happens, when you're with a person like this, you have to notice this behavior and understand that when they're silent, it's not about you. It's about calming the physiological changes that are happening. And so you guys know that when some people say they need time, and a lot of us don't want to give that time because we want to handle it right now, what you're doing is you're heightening that physiological response, and you're making it worse. So in practice, you need to give it some air so that that stuff can come down, so that person can be more reactive to the conversation. So I need for you guys to understand this, because if you are dealing with someone that has to do this, it's really about understanding the why, so that you don't have this combative nature, because it could turn into a thing. You keep pushing that person, they're going to keep pulling away, and then you get nowhere, because we push because we think the distance is about us all the time. So if it's about me, I'm going into defense mode. Like, what? You don't want to talk? What? No, we're going to handle it now. You can't do that with someone that has to do this as a coping mechanism to get themselves down so that they can actually have the dialogue, so that they can work out. And what you'll notice is, if you give them the time, the turnaround time gets less, because they're not running from you as much. So I'm going to talk to a couple of comments here. For a person who has abandonment issues, stonewalling will send you into a panic. Yeah. You're right about that. And that's the thing, right? It's all of these nuances, right? If you deal with abandonment issues and then you see that other person separating from you and stonewalling, then it could in turn trigger you. And in the end, especially if you know this person isn't going anywhere for real, y'all both probably need to take some time to breathe. And that should be part of a conversation that you have when you're at a time of peace, as part of your rules of engagement, as to not hurt each other. I know this about myself. I need time. I need for you to grant me that time. I know that you need to handle it now, but there needs to be a happy medium in the middle so that we do not hurt each other. I need y'all to catch that. This is what you do along the way, is you have to do these pulse and temperature checks to make sure that y'all are not in a space where you're resenting or hurting each other, because it turns into a big thing. And like I've said on prior shows, you could take two perfectly good people that could work together, and you take these little things and it destroys it. Let me see here. Dope discussions where Erica says, sounds like two people who are attracted to each other's trauma. Yeah. Oh, it's a huge population of trauma bonders out there that are trying to push through relationships and not resolving any of it. And here's the thing: a lot of people who trauma bond stay together for a long time because they're used to the trauma and the dysfunction that happens. It becomes normalized. Let's see here. Trauma bonding is a whole mess, Tashura says. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. The stonewalling thing, because a lot of us don't understand it, we take it as a slight against us. I'm going to keep saying that. In a lot of cases, it's not a slight against you, especially if the person says, I need a minute, and you don't give it to them. Now you're not listening. Doesn't even matter what the issue is, unless it's some super egregious, unhealthy domestic craziness. You got to listen to your partner. You have to listen to understand. You have to listen to make sure that they get where you're coming from. And sometimes you need to take a breath to be able to make that happen. Yeah, I need you guys to really, I'm gonna recap the 4 real quick, and then we're gonna get out of here. But I want you guys to really go back and replay this and think about how you show up in your relationships, and think about the people that you have dated, or maybe somebody you with now. Think about how they show up, because this then will lend you into some things that may be deal breakers for you. Because you got to understand yourself before you can teach somebody and show somebody how to love you, right? So if some of these things I talked about tonight will sing you over the edge, either you're going to have to fix some things, or you're going to have to find someone who doesn't exhibit that thing that is so triggering to you that makes you want to run for the hills. So it serves double duty. It teaches you what to do in a crisis situation, but it also lets you know that if you fall into a situation where it's too egregious, you might need to roll. So Love Tucker said it is very nuanced. The one we see easily are abused people staying and defending the one that abused them. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother panel show I'm gonna have about how we normalize the abuse and the trauma that we deal with in our relationships. Yeah, I'm gonna have to note that. I'll do a show on that, because that's a whole show in itself. But I do want to Kalisha says knowing yourself requires addressing and acknowledging that we are all traumatized in some shape or fashion. Exactly. Sometimes it takes a lot of us a lifetime. We'll leave this earth before we really even know who we are. And so I implore you guys to really try to figure that out, even if that means going to see a therapist or a coach or something. You're going to repeat the same things that you've always repeated that you hate if you don't figure out the why. Tashura says, I got triggered when someone yelled at me and shut down. Yeah, people do that too. Love Tucker says, oh man, I missed the whole thing. I got to watch the replay. So I'm going to recap these, and then we're going to get out of here. So the 4 horsemen, the 4 different horsemen to the demise that could contribute to the demise of your relationship. And we're talking about, basically communication, which is one of the biggest things that we highlight when we talk about relationships not working. Dope discussions. That one is coming next week. Toxic love languages. We're going to talk about that next week. That's going to be another powerful show. And then I'm going to be hitting up some of you guys for, I believe, which would be August 25th. I think that's a Wednesday. I'm gonna need a few of you guys to come on there for my 100th show. So be looking for those DMs. So the 4 horsemen. The first one is criticism. It's when you criticize the partner's character versus criticizing the problem. I need you guys to really think about how you deliver your concerns and your complaints to your partner, because a lot of that stuff can hurt, especially when you make them the problem and not the problem, right? Number 2 horseman is contempt. It's when you purposely being mean and belittling and calling people out their names and just assassinating them to hurt them on purpose. You're in a whole different place when you get there, because now the respect is gone. What do you do with that, right? When you don't respect your partner. First of all, call me out my name. You got warrants. I don't know if you get a pass on that. Maybe it's just me, but nah. And maybe y'all don't know. There's certain names you can call me. It's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. Defensiveness, right? We know what this means. Somebody accuses you of something, you go into victim mode and you like, no, it's you. It ain't me. No, you did the same thing. Nah, and you defending yourself because you feel attacked. But when you do that, you're still not resolving the conflict. So I need for you guys to really think about conflict resolution versus just normalizing the conflict and thinking that it's going to go away. It doesn't. You guys notice. We just talked about stonewalling. And, this is when people shut down. They need time. And sometimes we don't realize that there's some physiological things that are going on inside them that are heightened, and they really need that time. It's not about you. It's not about them running away from the issue or the conversation. They need time. And sometimes that conflict or that argument will go on way longer than it needs to because you keep pushing them to not detach. And then they just that physiological change just heightens, and it keeps heightens, and it keeps heightens. And now they probably going to go into defense mode because you keep coming at them. So think about these things and how we engage each other. And as you go through, going through the replay, looking up the author's name is John Gottman. He has a lot of different books. But the Four Horsemen, if you just look up John Gottman, Four Horsemen on Google, you'll see all of this stuff. And then it'll expound on some of these things. But this is a key, whether you are in a relationship or whether you may, feel like you may end up in one later or you're currently dating. These are the things that come up with mostly all relationships in one way, shape, or form. And now you have the tools and the information to understand what they mean so that you can have these conversations with your partner before the next one happens or before the first one happens. So that when it happens, you have things that you know that you need to do to respect and honor each other, even when something pisses you off. So let me read these few comments and then we're going to get out of here. But yes, I think the 25th, which I think is the last Wednesday of this month, is the 100th show. So I'm going to try to get a few folks on there with me. And I think what I'm going to do is, the 25th is the 100th show. I'm going to make that show the one where I bring some folks on, celebrate the 100th anniversary, but also do like the show where I want to do the relationship questions where y'all don't know what I'm going to ask and y'all just going to have to answer them blindly. I think that'll be fun. But anyway, we're going to get out of here. Hopefully you guys have gotten some value from this. Hopefully you guys have gotten some clarity to some things that you may have witnessed or experienced and understand what they really mean. And hopefully it'll spark some interest for you to want to discover more, want to learn more so that you show up better in your relationships and you change the trajectory on the path that you're on. So on that note, I want you guys to make sure that you hit up relationshipgumbo.info website. That's number one. Make sure you come back here every week. Make sure you go to that website, subscribe to the YouTube page, click the bell. Also, make sure that you tune in on Mondays, every single Monday at 8 p.m. for the Real Shop Talk Show with my brothers. We do some amazing things on that show, and it's going way better than I think anyone has expected, and it's going to keep it pushing. So we're talking about manhood. We're talking about, building community. And this week we're going to have 3 women on the show. And we're going to have a battle of the sexes. We're going to talk about these gender wars that are out here and the things that we're trying to push against, but just really trying to understand the why. We're going to have some fun with it, but we're going to learn some things too. So make sure you guys come back on Monday. Go to realshoptalk.net Click on that YouTube link, click the subscribe and the bell so you get notified so you do not miss it. And as always, make sure you guys have a good rest of your week and weekend. Take care of the old ones, the young ones, and everybody in between. And you guys have an amazing night. And I will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a great evening.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derrick Jones about to break it down with the relationship gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derrick Jones, the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship